Good morning. Welcome to Sports Radio 1310, the Ticket, George DiGianni Train Station Fitness Show. Back to school is upon us in the next several weeks, and as a parent, I know that you're dealing with a lot of struggle at times. A child who's lazy, doesn't want to get out of bed, a child who's defiant, a child who just doesn't want to go to school, and you're constantly shifting as a parent to learn how to guide, to teach them, to love them, to be a disciplinarian. You're constantly getting them ready and taking them somewhere. And there's a lot on your plate. How much of that effort that you put into loving your child goes into creating a healthy habit, instilling a healthy habit in them that they can take on to their own later generations? You as a grandparent now seeing a healthy grandchild. There are certain steps that we can take that my guest is going to share with us today. Tim Theriault, he wrote a book called Healthy Family Evolution. His website is myterrio.com. It's Terrio. And it's something to consider about being a parent. He particularly likes to call out the mother. Well, why mothers, I don't know. I say parents in general. But you have a lot of power as a parent. So as you shape that child and they get older, they don't think about having to become healthy or begin exercising, begin an eating protocol that is healthy because of an issue where they're in a reactive place. Rather, if you instill this in them by you performing exercise and they see you exercising and you eating well, they see you eating well, it becomes a part of them, and then they don't have to try so hard because it's who they are. It may not be to the level of being an athlete that some parents are, but at least it's part of the child. And again, I'll just back up. What are you doing as a parent that instills this behavior, this thought consciousness of proper or healthier choices in life? And Tim Theriault wants to share what that is. And like I said, he calls out the mother of the parents rather than just the father or mother and father. Why? We'll find out more about his book, Healthy Family Evolution. Coming up next at 7:03, Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. 710 Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket, George DiGianni Train Station Fitness Show. So my guest is Tim Theriault. He wrote a book called Healthy Family Evolution. Tim.
George, how are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. So I talked in the beginning of the show. Did you hear any of it? I don't know if you were on hold or not.
Yeah, I was listening to it.
And so we all want to know why you hate mothers. So yeah, one of the questions I actually had with your book is, I understand the importance of a mother influencing a child in just about everything they do. Often the father is working, not that mothers don't work, but the father's out and working, and the mother winds up having to do a whole lot of the getting ready and getting the child to do, eat certain things, get them dressed and all that stuff, unless you're a single father. But why did you single out the mothers in your book?
Mostly because of the premise that I think moms have a tendency to put everybody else ahead of them. They take this role of, I got to fill everybody else's needs. So as I looked at how are we going to get these families turned around and health-wise, I started looking at the moms. And, as a physical therapist, I see a lot of injured people. And I see these moms coming in, and I thought, what we really need is the mom to say, you know what, I have to get myself healthy first so that then I can lead my family. But if the mom is trying to put everybody else's needs in front and doesn't get herself healthy first, then there's no hope for moving forward.
And while I agree with that, I don't know that and this is not a knock on your book, anybody, you can have the most salient commentary you can possibly give somebody in a book, but does it come across in a way that changes a self-worth issue of a mother who will put herself first, which is, there may be many mothers who disagree with me and you, but I think that putting yourself first sets this child up to see the example of how you are in your future life, saying that the mother's first, and then the child will be taken care of right afterward, instead of compromising your integrity and everything you do for everybody else, and also your happiness. But how do you convey that message to where a mother who knows that what she's reading is not only true, but she actually makes a change? I mean, I don't understand how we get that across to someone who actually will make the change,
Right.
without the guilt.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's the piece. That's what I say in the book. The first step is to realize, and in the book, I set it up that, the mom takes her kid to a doctor's appointment for just a pre-sports physical routine thing, and then all of a sudden, the doctor starts focusing in on the same conversation that's being had more and more across America. Hey, your kid is now pre-diabetic. Your kid has metabolic syndrome. He's been overweight for a while, but now he's crossed that border. He's crossed that line where his glucose levels are now in pre-diabetic range, or metabolic syndrome, whatever you want to call it. And it spins the mom into, what do I do? Number one is the guilt of, how did this happen? Number two is, okay, now what do I do? And then she walks in and starts trying to find a solution. And as we know, there's all these solutions out there, but the failure rate of diets is still 95%. So what I try to say in the book is, look, you have to get going first so that you can lead your child into health. But to try to force him to go work out or force him to do a diet when you're not doing it leads to failure.
Right. Children learn by example. But like I said, I think the biggest struggle here is, while some mothers may recognize this, and then you also have the guilt also, where that can override them recognizing it, because all they want to do is sometimes play the martyr. Some women, and some women will recognize it, but they want to fix it, like you said, with a diet, opposed to having whatever it is that needs to change within themselves and the child be just a daily part of their life, and taking those small steps. One of the things that you said, and I've mentioned this many times, but it's great to hear come from another person, is the importance of consistency of action, not necessarily intensity. Go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, I used the analogy, and it's been out there in a couple books, but I used the analogy that human beings are like a man riding an elephant, or a woman riding an elephant, as the case may be. But you don't see somebody go jump on an elephant in the wild and have much success. The only reason we can use elephants is because we start training them when they're really, really young, right? They take an elephant, and if they don't daily train the elephant to work with them, then the elephant has no interest in doing whatever the person riding it wants to do. So the human analogy of that is, the rider is our analytical, logical side. It knows what's supposed to happen. The elephant is our emotional side. So it just knows what it knows and what feels good. So if we let our elephants run wild and do whatever they want, or learn that they don't have to have discipline every day, then the rider goes and jumps on the elephant, and the elephant just says, forget you. And the example of that is every January 1st, right, with New Year's resolutions. We let the elephant run crazy from November through December in the holidays, do whatever it wants, eat, drink whatever it wants. And then all of a sudden we put a chain on it, drag it to the gym on January 1st or 2nd. And then we're shocked when the elephant stampedes out of the gym and never goes back again.
And it's the same thing that can be said as far as a parent who lacks being that disciplinarian, whether through guilt or they don't know how, they don't have the tools, and they don't care enough to really give the discipline a child needs. And all children cry out for discipline. I don't care who they are. They want discipline, but sometimes you don't recognize it. So you let time go by, and then you start to discipline your child, and you get this incredible resistance. And it's the same thing, like you said, if you don't start at a young age with this elephant, whatever that elephant is, whether it's your health and fitness or a child's disciplinary needs, and you try to instill this later on, you're going to get a lot of resistance until you can start getting some relief of that. So go ahead. I didn't want to, take your wind out of your sail, but I think I contributed to it the best I could.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. I mean, whether it's, I'm a believer that anything is possible, but only if you take the steps to walk down that path. And that's the third piece of the puzzle. We've got the rider, we got the elephant. And the third piece is the path. Is it a clear path? Now, even if a person's got a trained elephant, if the path isn't clear and they don't know where they're going, so there's not goals of where you're trying to get to, then that doesn't work together.
Well, sometimes, tell me if you agree or disagree, sometimes the goal of I want to be healthy, or you found out your child or yourself, you are now in a diabetic state that you have voluntarily brought on to yourself because of either lacking the knowledge, which is not necessarily voluntarily, but or having the knowledge but just not caring enough. And so I think we struggle with identifying what the goal is. Maybe the goal shouldn't be so broad and so big, like I want to be healthy, or I want to get rid of this diabetes. How about just introducing something that's healthy in your life today that you didn't have yesterday, and you can build upon that, oh, by the way, leads to being healthier? Because I think, again, this is just my thought, that if you say, I don't want to be diabetic anymore, or whatever the ailment is, or I don't want to be overfat, or I don't want to be unhealthy anymore, if you don't know what that looks like, how can you begin to change it? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two things. One is, what does it look like? And the more important thing for the elephants, what does it feel like? But if we haven't been healthy in a long time or ever, we don't know what it feels like. So it's the same thing as saying, hey, I want to be rich.
Right.
Great, but do you know what that's like? Do you know what that feels like? Do you know what it's really like? There's these dreams, and it's always the same thing, right? We get ourselves in trouble. We get ourselves in financial trouble. We get ourselves in health trouble. And one of the analogies I use is Niagara Falls. And for some reason in America, we know there's this big waterfall at the end of Diabetic River, right? Instead of Niagara River. So we float along in the river blissfully, and people are saying, hey, there's a big fall coming. And you can't avoid it. When you have diabetes, it's a matter of time before the disease takes you out. So what we know is if you get out of the river before the waterfalls, you're safe. But what we choose to do in America is, there's 24 million type 2 diabetics right now. There's 79 to 80 million pre-diabetics coming down the river. And there's all this information saying, hey, get out. But instead we choose to go over the falls and hope our doctors can catch us before we hit the rocks at the bottom.
Right, we're being reactive instead of responsive. And that's the way we tend to live in America, isn't it? Let's react. Oh, I have this ailment, take a pill. I have this pain here, go ahead and take a pill. Oh, I want to lose weight, take a pill. And unfortunately, when you're in that reactive mode, you're waiting for something to happen so then you can share a story about it with all your friends. They can feel bad for you, and you can then take a pill. I want to give you an example real fast. I've done a ton of volunteering throughout my life, and there's one place I volunteer every week for the past, 7-8 years. And it's the SM Wright Foundation in East Dallas. And I love being down there. When I'm not down there, it really bothers me. And I share this with you because when I'm down there, I know all these people. I've seen all these people for so many years. And they all have a kind of a different complaint, and some have similar complaints. But some people like to complain just to complain. One lady told me the other day that she had rheumatoid arthritis in a span of 15 seconds. She told me 3 times. And she wanted everyone to know that she had this, but instead of, and she was very capable. She wanted someone to help her out with her groceries. And it's not that we shouldn't offer help to any female who wants help, or anybody who wants help, but when you rest your mind on a particular condition you have, you play this give up card. And whether you take a pill for it or not, it's you now rest on, this is what you have. This is what you'll have for life, and you're going to continue to play this card until you succumb to that, whatever that is. And then you really can't function, and you don't have to tell anybody, because we can see that you have horrible rheumatoid arthritis and you can't make a fist, you can barely move, and someone just offers to help you. You don't have to tell anyone.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely that mindset. And I think it's one of the problems with diabetes is you finally get diagnosed. Like you said, you go to the doctor gives you a pill. The problem with diabetes is there's no real symptoms for about 10 years. So you don't really feel it, right? So the doctor says, hey, you now have diabetes or pre-diabetes. And even if they say you have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, nothing really changes. You don't feel different. So it's like, I don't know what the doc's talking about. And then he gives you a pill. So now there's no reason to make a change because I don't feel different, and he gave me this magical pill. But I was talking to a friend of mine who's a GI doc here, and he was telling me about fatty livers.
Yeah.
He was talking about, the biggest explosion he's seeing is fatty livers. And he said, look, in 10 years, same thing, a fatty liver becomes cirrhosis. And then there's nothing you can do.
Right.
So he's diagnosing all these people with cirrhosis. They're like, I don't drink. He said, it doesn't matter. You had a fatty liver that turned into cirrhosis. And he said he sees weekly multiple patients that come in because their doctor sends them over because their liver panels are all messed up. He sees them and says, yeah, you got a fatty liver. Well, great, give me a pill. Well, there isn't a pill. So
and isn't it something as an adult, if we look back to the beginning of the show where we talk about mothers or parents in general being responsible not only for you loving your child and disciplining them and doing all the things you do as a parent, such a hardworking job that is in itself, but if you weren't set up with the proper tools to be healthy, if you're a parent now, what are you doing that you didn't do or didn't receive with your current child to set them up for success so that they don't deal with what you're dealing with in the future? And do you see it as a big enough problem to make that change today? So coming up next, you can expand upon that if you want, Tim, but one of the things that I like that's in your book, you talk about Parkinson's Law. And I like that because it's something that, I don't care if you're a parent or if you're a person trying to be healthier or trying to gain more funds or spend more time with family, whatever your intended desire is, Parkinson's Law can apply to you if you don't pay attention to it or not aware of it. So we'll talk more with you when we come back. We're with Tim Terrio. He wrote a book called Healthy Family Evolution. You can get it at myterrio.com. It's myterrio.com or even amazon.com. It's 725 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. 731 Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket. George DeGianni Train Station Fitness Show. My guest is Tim Terrio. You can go to his website, myterrio.com. It's myterrio.com. He wrote a book called Healthy Family Evolution. So how many parents have ever heard their child say, Mommy, Daddy, I cannot wait to grow up and have diabetes. I cannot wait to grow up and have cancer. I can't wait to grow up and have ... fill in the blank. I don't think any child has ever said that in their entire life. However, as a parent, if you're not setting your child up for success by them learning by example, by you eating healthy and exercising well, why should they or even you be in a reactive state opposed to a responsive state? Which is to say, why wait for a problem to happen before you decide to have a structured, healthy eating plan or go to the gym? And why does it have to be the gym? Why not just be more active? My guest, Tim Terrio, wrote a book targeting mothers because of their influence on children. Tim, go ahead and talk about, either expand upon my last thought before we went to a commercial, or go ahead and go into your Parkinson's Law that's in your book.
I think what you just said is totally true. The only follow-up I usually throw in is, hey, Mommy, Daddy, I'd love to have type 2 diabetes when I'm old. Then the parent could respond right now, well, great, we're well on our way to that, so let's just keep doing what we're doing, and you'll be there. Because the number one diagnosis right now, I mean, we changed the name from adult-onset diabetes to type 2 diabetes because kids are getting it now. It was never seen in kids before. And now we're seeing it, so we changed to the point where we changed the name. The other thing that bothers me is statistically we see that there's a study out about 7th graders, that only 40% of 7th graders now are viewed as physically fit.
Wow.
So we're heading down the wrong path.
Yeah.
And I think back to Parkinson's law, I think it's a big reason, and it goes into any area of our life, and I think health and wellness is really mental, physical, some type of spiritual. It's the whole package put together. But you can go into the other areas of your life too, and Parkinson's law fits in. And Parkinson's law comes from Cyril Parkinson. He wrote an article in 1955 where he was kind of mocking it. But the law says that work expands to fill the time available for its completion. So he was in The Economist. He was talking about how it's strange that when we have to get something done, we can get it done.
Mm-hmm.
But when we don't, we'll just fill our day up with whatever. We'll fill up the time available. And it's part of the reason that people talk about, the number one excuse that I hear all the time, and I'm sure it's one you hear, is I don't have enough time to exercise.
Well, here's another one. Let's take exercise out of the equation for a moment. How many times have you seen a friend you've not seen in a while, and they say, "Oh, we haven't talked in a while," so and so, and the normal response is, "Well, I've been so busy." Well,
Right.
Is it busy, or is it really coming down to priority? What's most important, and whatever's most important in your time, like you said, filling up your day with. Whether it's getting on Facebook or on your cell phone or letting time go by with whatever it is that's most important to you. It's not necessarily a terrible thing, but when you look at Parkinson's law saying that work expands to fill the time available, that is to say, if we want to fill the time or we want to include another activity, calling a friend, having lunch with a friend, being more active, we can do it because the time will expand for us to have that availability or to create that task, whatever that is. Isn't that true?
Yeah, I used Parkinson's law, and then I put it together with Pareto's principle, right? So, and if people don't know Pareto's, it's the 80-20 rule.
80-20 rule, right.
So when you put those two laws together, you can explain exactly what you just talked about. If Parkinson's law, if you don't have a plan to fill your day, you'll fill it with something. And it's gotten easier and easier to fill it because we've got these smartphones and this incessant need to be entertained. And now you look at kids, and or even adults, they're always on their smartphone, their iPad, their computer, looking for entertainment, videos, all the social media stuff. But that's not using Pareto's. So you fill your day. But if you don't use Pareto's 80-20 plan, where 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts, and I think it's really more like 90-10 or even more than that, that what are the big things I need? What are the most important, the vital few things that I need to make sure are in my day today? Well, without a plan, those don't happen. And you end up at the end of the day going, man, I was so busy today. I did all this stuff. I didn't have time.
Well,
it's because you never planned
two
for it.
thoughts come to mind, Tim. If you ask some people without a plan what they did in their day, they could barely fill up the entire day telling you what they did. It might be one or two, maybe even three tasks. But filling up the rest of the day, you're not going to hear someone say, well, I spent about 10, 15 minutes or so on my smartphone looking at Facebook or this and that. People won't often come out and say all of the things they've done. Not necessarily a terrible thing. I mean, every Saturday I go home and I download my the radio show, the video of that from my smartphone onto my computer. And when I'm doing that, I also take my dog out and we go for our nice little walk. And I find myself wanting to check my phone while I'm on the walk, but I don't have the phone. But it's this automatic response, right?
Yep.
And so I'm guilty of that too. But the other part that comes to mind is, are you telling us, and this is a brave thing to say if this is what you're saying, are you telling us if someone wants to be rich or if they want to be healthy, whatever their desire is in life, that they're not going to have it when they wake up in the morning unless they've planned to get there? Are you saying something so bold, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's
There's
terrible.
No doubt. I mean, dreams are great, and telling people what you're going to do is great. But until you take a step to do it, you're just talking. So, I mean, when it comes to any area of your life, stop talking and start walking. right? Stop telling people what you're going to do and start doing it.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's the other part of, if you look at Pareto's in reverse, though, it's exactly what you said, right? If 80% of our results come from 20% of our effort, then, I mean, Tim Ferriss's book, the 4-Hour Work Week, is that. He's saying, look, in 4 hours a week, you can produce what the rest of the people you work with produce in a full week. That's where the 4 hours come from. And I think it's the same thing. If you really look at getting healthy, we need a couple things. One, we need to get some activity each day. And now there's the new talk about the new health risk factor is inactivity, sedentary activity. If you sit for 8 to 10 hours a day doing nothing, can you reverse that by exercise or by activity?
But you have to want to do that.
Right.
How about just after dinner with the family? Maybe I'm cursing here because not a lot of people have dinner with their family, a sit down where there's no phone involved and you have dinner, family dinner time. And when I say not many people, that means I don't know many people. It doesn't mean it's true statement that I'm making, but I don't know of many people who enforce that sit down time with family at night and there's no phones. It's just everybody sitting down and enjoying dinner together. And you don't have to enjoy it, but it should be part of what I think, a family that eats together and exercises together stays together. But after that, how about go out for a walk or do something outside just to be active?
Yeah, it's just breaking it up. And I agree, spending time together, setting up, no technology times. Like, just, we got to get back to that. And it's another one of the things that I think is important is this getting away from this belief that it's more expensive to eat healthy than it is.
Come on, Tim. You're telling me it's not more expensive to eat healthy?
It absolutely is not. And I'll tell you why. Because if it's not, then McDonald's and all these fast food restaurants are being very generous to take a loss and not have any profits to feed us that food.
So, but let's look at this for a moment. The argument is always going to be, or always has been, I don't want to say what it's going to be in the future, the absolute, but it has been in the past. Look, guys, I can get a cheeseburger, a fries, and a soda. I don't even know. I'm going to make up a number for $2. I don't know if that's a real number or not. I don't eat at those places, but I can get that for $2. And you're telling me you want me to have vegetables, organic at that, and you want me to have chicken or fish or something like that. We're talking about a $15, $20 meal.
Right. And then, yeah, if you go eat it at a restaurant. I think back to the family, the other thing that we've forgotten is how to cook and bake at home, how to make things. And you always hear, well, my kids don't like that. And I have 3 kids, and so I was like, they don't want to eat. Well, just a quick example, my son, who's 14 now, for 14 years I've been telling him, hey, look, one of my favorite things is mushrooms. I love mushrooms as a dish. And he would never eat them. And all of a sudden he went to one of my niece's husbands cooks a lot, and he went and had dinner with him, and they cooked them. And he comes home and goes, Dad, you know what? Mushrooms are awesome. And it was because he cooked them. My niece's husband took the time to show him, hey, let's slice these up. This is how you cook them. Put a little rosemary on there, and now he came back and said, let's cook. So I'm like, awesome, let's cook. I hadn't thought about it, because we got in the habit, hey, we're busy, we get home, let's cook dinner real quick. But including the kids, now all of a sudden they'll try new things because they're involved in it.
You know what I like about you saying this, Tim, is we often hear from females, mothers in particular, if you want your child to eat a food that they don't want to eat, or they've not been exposed to yet and they think they don't want it, they won't like it, have them cook with you. And it's a fantastic, I think it's the best, my number one favorite suggestion. If you want a child to eat a food that's healthy for them, have them cook with you, have them be part of the process. But to hear it come from a guy, a father, is probably more of an impact for our male listening audience. And you say, they may still not like it because, to tell you the truth, Tim, I don't like mushrooms. I don't care if they're good for me or not. I'm not eating mushrooms. That's the end of it. I don't care if I cook them, if I grow them, it doesn't matter. I'm not eating mushrooms. However, the majority of your efforts to have that child be part of the process, at least I believe, this is my belief, that they'll at least try it. And then they can make a decision about whether they like it or not. And it doesn't mean that you put a bunch of butter and stuff on vegetables. Not that butter's a bad thing, it's actually good. But I like vegetables completely sweet as they are, just lightly steamed. That's my taste.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Let them try it. Let them explore different combinations, and just set up, the ability to do it, and let them decide. Because it goes back to the same thing. If I was talking to a guy that works for me. He said, "Man, I can't get my kid to eat. All he wants to eat is chicken fingers." And I go, "Well, yeah, given the choice. I mean, the problem is it isn't more expensive to eat healthy, because you can go, if you really step back and look at it, you go to the store, you can get a bag of beans and a bag of rice for nothing. I mean, it's so cheap. And then even the vegetables and everything else you can put in there really isn't expensive. What it is it's a hell of a lot more convenient to eat bad. That's the problem. So people are talking the wrong thing. It's not more expensive to eat healthy. It's just not as convenient. But back to our Parkinson's law, right? We take a little bit of that time and a little bit of planning to know, hey, let's make a run to the store and get this stuff and have it available. All of a sudden, it is ready. It is there. It is convenient. And it is training your elephant in a new path that, okay, this is how we go.
Tim, which part of your book that we've not touched on yet do we absolutely need to touch on coming up in the next segment that people really need to hear and know and adopt or implement in their life?
I think the biggest thing is talking about motor learning and how the steps of motor learning, the process of motor learning, and what's a normal, natural way. It's just ingrained in us.
People need to know what motor learning is. So let's talk about that coming up next. What is motor learning? Who benefits from it? And how do you begin to implement this into your life? We'll talk with Tim Terrio. His website is myterrio.com, T-E-R-R-I-O. His book, Healthy Family Evolution. 745 Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. 751 Sports Radio 1310, The Ticket. George DiGianni of the Train Station Fitness Show. So today's show is not just about parents guiding their children, but just you as an adult, how you can be in a responsive place when it comes to your health instead of reacting. So instead of waiting for an ailment to come into your life and having to react to that by taking a pill or having surgery, whatever that is, why not be responsive? Look at how others are living. Look at your life. How comfortable is your life? When you go up a set of stairs, do you sound like Darth Vader because you can't breathe properly because you're not healthy enough? Do you make a conscious effort as a parent to treat yourself well with respect, with proper health, and recognize that your child is observing you and that that child will take those tools or lack thereof into their adulthood and how they will then pass those on to their children. I don't think any parent really wants to harm their child, but are you really helping your child by allowing them to eat whatever they want? Let them be the boss. Because they're throwing a tantrum or whatever the reason is, you want to shut them up because you're busy or you want to take a nap or whatever it is that you're trying to do to appease that child, and then try to turn around and fix that is going to be too much of a challenge. So maybe you don't take the effort or the initiative to make those changes because it's now too difficult. Who am I to tell you what to do? I'm not a parent, but I will tell you what I've observed, and I don't think I'm too far off the mark in my advice or in my observations to share what may be beneficial for a family. My guest is Tim Terrio. He wrote a book, Healthy Family Evolution, and you can buy it on Amazon. His website is myterrio.com, myterrio.com. And he wants to talk about his, what is it, your movement talk?
Yeah, the motor learning. Because I think part of, again, like we're talking about health, but it's applicable into multiple areas. But we forget, part of it is how do we get more active? So the next step is, well, what things can you do? And there's a natural thing that happens in the body at the motor learning stages. There's different models, but the one I reference is Fitz and Posner, meaning that we know when a baby is learning to walk, right? There's a set sequence it has to go through. And the funny part is it's a huge moment in every parent's life, right? We wait. We know it takes about a year from the time the baby's born until they're ready to walk. And when they start walking, it's not good, right? It's not normal pattern. It's just a few clumsy steps and the kid falls down and we all cheer and clap, videotape it, send it to family. And then as the kid starts to learn to walk, it becomes a more natural walking mechanism. That's motor learning. But somewhere after that, we lose that sense that it takes time to learn something new. And we don't like to feel goofy. So the first step of motor learning is the cognitive state, or where you have to think through the motion, and it's robotic and it's clumsy and we don't like it. And we end up quitting because we don't like it. So then we never learn new things. Mm-hmm. And the weird part to me is we will be critical and judge people and laugh at people when they're trying new stuff. But it's a normal part of learning a new movement. So the reason I bring it up is we got to give ourselves a break, and we also need to teach our kids, hey, look, if you're trying something new, if you're trying to learn to play the guitar, if you're trying to learn to roller skate, it's going to look goofy until you get through the first couple stages, until you start learning the pattern. Whenever we're moving through space, our muscles, our nerves, everything has to learn the movement, how much force to use, how much speed. So it's okay, but we've got to stop being critical when people try new things. In the first few steps of it, it's going to look goofy. So
I see what comes to mind. I like what you're saying. I just don't know how many people stop or avoid exercise because of looking goofy. Maybe a lot of the female population does, so that's why they like to immerse themselves in those classes instead of being out in front of in the weight room, because they don't know what to do, so they don't want to look goofy, or they don't want to ask, or they don't want to ask a guide because the guy might give them bulky, if you will, exercises. But so there is a certain part of the population that doesn't exercise maybe for that reason, or exercise with strength training, rather, in that scenario. I think the majority is lazy, not wanting to go, feeling tired after work, not wanting to get up in the morning and do it, and also nobody likes the pain when they're exercising, or not many people do. What people fail to recognize is when you finish exercising, and you do this for a short period of time, and I mean less than a week, you start to have more sustained energy throughout the day. You do feel better. It's a great way to start your day, but when you get home from work, if you can do something just in your house, it helps you to have, it changes so much in your physiology, you just feel better. It doesn't have to be to the point where you're going all out with a super high intensity, just be active, and I think that's your biggest message today.
Right, yeah, and then not only the physical parts of exercise and increased activity, but also the mental stimulation we get. I mean, we see now that over and over in research is showing up that we have about 90-minute blocks that we can really pay attention to. And then there's a diminishing return. So, again, back to planning, if you can plan your day out where you're doing bursts of whether it's mental activity or physical activity, but mix them back and forth, because then you mentally will be more stimulated and be more productive.
I'd like to end it on this. For people who don't plan or don't like to plan, if there's any type of consistent success you'd like to achieve in your life, financial wealth, an athlete, any type of success, successful parent, those people who are most successful, I would guarantee this because I know a lot of them and I've read tons of articles. I'm also in business school, and we look at a lot of studies. Every single one of the plans, they all have a plan. It doesn't have to be 5 years. It can be a plan for that day only. But all successful people plan it. If you want to be successful, like certain articles you read, or people you'd like to emulate, or people you look up to, the only way, not the only way, let's take that out and not be so absolute. One of the best ways to get there, and one of the things you can adopt, because this is what all of these people do, is have a plan. Tim, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. Your book is Healthy Family Evolution. MyTerrio.com is your website, and good luck with that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.